Eviction filings skyrocket to the moon in progressive Washington state that I live in, state that I'm podcasting from right now. And you know why it's happening? Because of self-imposed policies. Let's get into it. Here we go. Some of you that are probably newer here may not know that my background in real estate is I've been an appraiser for 30-something years. I've owned a couple of real estate companies. I've got over 100 brokers that I manage, Summit Properties Northwest. And, over the last 40 years, since I've been a teenager, working and whatnot, you just see policy after policy after policy enacted that constricts the supply of housing. And then you have things like this cheap gas tax, another $9 billion in taxes. Our new governor, Bob Ferguson, laid on us and, let's do this. Should be great. And then you wonder, how are eviction filings skyrocketing? It's crazy that this is happening in the state of Washington. No, this is exactly what you should expect. And you should expect more of this. And you should expect more people that can't afford to live here. Because not only is it an area where historically, you've had tons of people moving in because of employment, because of the tech industry, because of just strong employment. And people like living in Seattle because it's affordable compared to California. So now you've got all these folks and you've got all these social welfare programs that Democrats have to keep feeding because these are people you can't just say bye-bye. But that's what's happening. People are saying bye-bye to their homes. And during the pandemic, you basically had a one-sided deal where landlords were absolutely screwed, just bent over and taken to Pound Town, and the tenants had everything covered. No problem. If you've been impacted by the pandemic, your rent, don't have to pay it. I mean, years of that went on. And now those things have been lifted because the pandemic happened years ago. And we're shocked with eviction filings. Washington counties grapple with record-breaking eviction rates. This is expected for life just to go on. And so many other factors in there, right? And we'll get into some of those.
Eviction is a tragedy, and it's something no one, neither the landlord nor the tenant, wants to end up there.
Sean Flynn is the executive director and board president of the Rental Housing Association of Washington. He's worked in the industry for 15 years and says he's not surprised by the numbers the Eviction Research Network found when it comes to Washington state and county eviction trends.
The eviction system in the state of Washington is broken, and it needs to be reformed.
That data, published on December 18th, shows based on information collected from January to November of 2024, last year was said to have the highest eviction filing count in the state.
Look at King County. I get my yellow pointer here. Look at King County. To the moon. Here's pandemic, right? Pandemic period right in through here. And then just boop. So King County has the biggest population. Pierce and Snohomish are behind that. So King County has the largest number of people who are going to be on situations where the government has supplemented their housing, and things have gotten so expensive, gasoline, food, you name it. It's gotten really expensive in Washington state. And our state legislator has just been a supermajority by the Democrats for years and years and years. As an adult, I can barely remember a Republican governor. I mean, it's just like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that, dude. But I was like in elementary or something like that. It's Democrat run. So is this shocking? No. People can't afford it here. People straight up can't afford it. And it's because so many policies have constricted housing and caused everything to just be wildly expensive, not unlike California and the issues they're having. Oregon, same thing. Don't have a supply of housing, got a bunch of people want to live there, and you got a bunch of people on subsidized by the government. Well, and costs go up and your income doesn't rise accordingly, or whatever it is that you're, paying rent with or not paying rent with. This is not a shocker.
The state's recorded history. The 9 counties in red are the counties the Eviction Research Network found broke records in 2024. Some of those counties include King County, Clark, Thurston, and Spokane. As December numbers trickle in,
we expect that the rest of the state will likely have broken records.
Director for the Eviction Research Network at UC Berkeley, Tim Thomas, says at its core, the problem boils down to wages not meeting rising rents. Over the past 12 months, King County had more than 7,300 eviction filings. Pierce County had more than 3,500, Spokane 2,200, and Snohomish and Clark counties more than 2,100.
I think funding tenant assistance is step one.
Flynn says the eviction process used to be a smoother and quick.
Funding tenant assistance. That creates a situation where you're on the hook for them forever. You've got situations where people arguably haven't been able to afford Washington for a long time, yet they're still here. And now they're getting evicted because there's no way to kind of sidestep the costs associated with living in Washington anymore. I'm looking at moving out. Mainly based on policy. And when I'm no longer working, I'm no longer podcasting, even though I say, days, weeks, months, years, I'm not going to stop podcasting anytime soon. But there will come a point where I want to work less. And Washington State is so expensive to live I don't need to live here. So I'm going to move out. Other folks that have had, rent assistance through the government don't have those kind of options, and they're stuck. And this is the end result. They get booted.
Quicker process.
Pretty much since 2018, 2019, there's been a lot of changes to the law that makes that time frame stretch out a lot longer and makes the process more cumbersome.
Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda sent Fox 13 this statement, which says in part, "This report underscores the need to invest in housing stability through permanently affordable housing, services, and rental assistance, and to protect households against practices like AI-driven rent gouging that are making housing increasingly unaffordable for households in our communities."
This is not.
All right. So she's a communist. And whenever somebody points out price gouging or anything along those lines, we typically recognize that they are not dealing with a full set of facts. They are not dealing with reality. This isn't price gouging. This is the end result of decades upon decades of policy. How about a prime example of that is we just put a rent cap. Just put a rent cap on the state. What's that going to do to big companies wanting to come in and build apartment units, that kind of housing that you need on your entry level to create greater amount of supply so that you can stabilize prices? Companies aren't going to come in when they're basically being told, don't build here. We are not landlord friendly, and Washington State is not landlord friendly. Quite the opposite. I've documented what happens to landlords when somebody claims, even though they're making $411,000 between them and their wife, and they claim they have no money, they have an NGO come in and keep their rent current, for years while the landlord doesn't get paid. Make that make sense. And then you want to have people like Teresa Mosqueda bitch about, there's price gouging going on. No, this is your reality. And Washington State residents, you're going to have to pay more in taxes increasingly to cover all of the housing costs for all of these people who flat can't afford it. That's going to be on you. That's going to be on your taxpayer dollar drag.
Just a isolated incident. This is happening to veterans. This is happening to grandmothers. This is happening to our sisters with children.
So this is not a shocker. This is happening up and down West Coast, Best Coast. Number of people being displaced right now is at a historic high in Washington State. January 2025 was the single highest month that we've seen seasonally. February and March were just a hair under that. Now, some of this is the after effects of super long foreclosure process. No, not foreclosure, eviction process. Foreclosure for somebody not paying their mortgage. Eviction process. Super long. And during the pandemic, all bets were off because landlords were evil, weren't they? Those evil landlords, they could just go to the bank and get a loan. They did it first time round. We were literally told that for people who own real estate. In King County alone, eviction filings in January 2025 were 66% higher than pre-pandemic levels. It's pretty mind-boggling, he said. Yes and no. This is what you get in a Democrat-run state where you've constricted, you've got a Growth Management Act, you've constricted the supply of housing 10 ways from Sunday, not only on local and county levels, but also on state, the state level. Let's put a rent cap in there. It'd be great for the tenants. And then investors are like, no, I don't think so. We've got, there's a run of landlords right now that are seeing some pretty mind-blowing numbers. They're selling their homes, further constricting the supply of housing or rental properties, further constricting that. And the government can't build its way out with supply. Just can't do it. Not even close. Not even close. I mean, Gavin Newsom is the poster child for unaffordable housing, state of California in general. And he's talking about building, the millions of units. And it's like, that ain't happening. That is not happening. Just like the 220 mile an hour high-speed train to nowhere. Not a happening. Evictions in Washington have steadily increased over the last few years with no signs of slowing. And it's because things have become so unaffordable. You've priced everybody out of the state. So look at your policies. This is why people are leaving and going to Florida. They're going to Texas. They're going to Oklahoma. They're going away from West Coast. And I don't blame them. The spike stems from rising rents coupled with stagnant wages, lack of affordable housing, and the expiration of pandemic-era eviction protections, such as increased rental assistance. All that's done. It's done. Filing statewide reached an all-time high in 2024, up 53% since 2019. Fiscal year 2025 is on pace to surpass those numbers. So between covering, the homeless industrial complex, all the folks that need help with their rent, you've got a tax scenario where your commercial real estate isn't bringing in the big bucks it once was. You've also got a massive hiring slowdown in the tech sector in Washington state. So all these factors, the economy is seasonal and each state is seasonal. Things go in gangbusters for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden you got a pullback. You got Amazon pulling back. You got Microsoft pulling back. So wages, this is too expensive in an area for most folks who have entry-level jobs to live, period. It just is. It's not a reality because Washington has priced those people out of living here. So what are you going to do? You're going to have to subsidize them, keep them from being foreclosed on. How many millions of people are going to be subsidized? The increase in evictions is stretching Washington's right to counsel program thin. Oh yeah, and you give everybody a lawyer, right? Statewide program began in 2021 as the first of its kind in the nation. Whenever you read that, think not sustainable long term. And it's meant to ensure that low-income tenants have access to legal representation while navigating the eviction process, which greatly increases a person's likelihood of winning their case and accessing housing resources. But if you can't pay it and you don't have a long-term solution, what are you going to do? That's why I think you should, I think there needs to be, cases for relocation. Relocate people to where they can afford. I don't know why that isn't a thing, but it's just not. I want to stay here. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. And that sucks. I mean, it really sucks. And being evicted, not good, right? Don't want to see that. But the harsh reality is it's gonna happen. Until about 6 months ago, I used to start every presentation on this topic by saying, we've represented every single low-income tenant who's eligible since 2021. We can't say that anymore because we finally got to a point in King County where we couldn't keep up. So, what landlord in his right mind wants to, lease a home in King County to a tenant that if they decide they just no longer want to pay rent is going to lawyer up and they're going to figure out a way to basically stay in that property and drain you financially 10 ways from Sunday. What landlord wants to do that? And then the state, lays on a rent cap program. Oh, yeah, it's going to be 7% a year or 10% with inflation. No matter what those numbers are, no matter what that actually ends up being, it's the optics, which state of Washington is basically saying, we love trees, we hate landlords, because otherwise we'd be building more housing. And you can't build your way out of this one. You don't have the ability to build enough housing to create a situation where you flood the market with supply and bring the cost of housing down. You're going to be lucky to create enough housing to create a situation where those rents just slowly creep up. Because rents have just been, going to the moon. And it's because you've had a situation where tons of people are still coming into Washington State because there's a lot of job opportunity, but that pushes people out that don't have the high tech. They don't have the tech bro jobs. You've got stagnant wages is what they're saying on the, the low end. Yeah, everybody's felt it. Inflation tore people apart. And the past administration spent 4 years telling us that inflation wasn't a problem. The economy was doing great. But hey, now evictions are exploding. How did that happen? How did we get here? I don't understand. It's wild, isn't it? It's like, the situation is unfathomable. I don't know what to do. Well, that's because you don't have a lot of options. And the state of Washington doesn't have any options. You can't legislate your way out of these things, just like you can't get, rid of the homeless industrial complex. You can't do it. It's stuck. You've got it. You built it and they came. And now you've built a system where housing supply, down in Cal, housing supply isn't going to be impacted by much. You're just not going to be able to build that much. Between the Growth Management Act and cost of construction here, we've got the highest per square foot cost to build in the United States. And we wonder why more affordable housing isn't being built. You know what I mean? It's like, hello, McFly, anyone there? This is just stuff that is common sense, but I live in Washington State. Don't have a lot of that. Not a lot of red here. A lot of blue. Blue doesn't have any common sense. Anyway, podcasts for days, weeks, months, years. Some people are saying into the millennium. Oh, well, I'm not going to be alive that long, but make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next one because this storyline isn't going away. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.